Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 168, I was very privileged to have Gino Payne on the podcast. He is a director, producer, cinematographer, and he's had over 10 years in the game of and production. I've got to say, it was a very good conversation, very interesting conversation, actually. We talked about his time at college, what sort of motivated him to get into the film and music movie production game. We talked about his time with his music video business, and yeah, how he almost messed up quite badly at one point. But still, we also talked about how he got involved with Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and yeah, basically a number of interesting TV shows. And yeah, we talked about other things as well. He was a joy to speak to him, and yeah, I look forward to more sort of in-depth conversations. Maybe we can help resolve and help the world in a better way, but we shall see. So please subscribe to the podcast. It really does help. Enjoy the show, and yeah, have a fantastic day. Very well. Peace. Haha. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on the podcast, I am very privileged to have Gino Payne. He is a director, producer, cinematographer with over 10 years in the game, where he's picked up an award or two in his lifetime. Gino, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It feels great to be here with you, and I love your energy. It's
Hey,
great.
what can I say? Copious amounts of chocolate, fizzy drinks, and God knows what else keeping me going. Uh, yes, this man has had fish and chips twice, and he's liked it. Yeah. you
I
know,
don't know why that makes me laugh so hard because yeah, the first time I had it, I was like, why is this like the thing to do? And then the second time I was like, can we go back to that other place again? It was good. It was good. But the second time, like I said, I went to the hood, it was good. It was where the good food was.
yep, and like the place he refers to as the hood is Southwark, which is in South London, and you're very right. It's just the hood. Yeah, anything south of the river. It's like, pick up on some of that bias there. I don't care. Now, I have to ask, many moons ago, back when you were in Savannah College of Art and Design, what did you think would your career trajectory would be from there?
I mean, I think I if I'm thinking back, I remember being quite unsure as to how this all would work out
Mm.
because I remember thinking, like, wait a second. So then I graduate, and then because at the time I had a lot of local clients, I was creating music videos and doing like local, event videography and stuff like that, and creating like mini docu-series and stuff, just creating content. But I was thinking like, well, at least I will, have better relationships. I know some of this high-end equipment, and I'd be able to get hired to work for a studio at some point. But yeah, I was very confused as to how it all worked and how it would all play out. I dreamed of graduating and just going right into working for a studio, but that's just not how that played out. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have this grandiose vision of sort of going right into Hollywood. I kind of was always of the mindset that I was going to be able to just kind of continue what I was already doing.
Yeah, because like it's one of those things where I don't know if things are different with yourself. Like when you like sort of went, okay, I want to go to college, I want to do film school,
Mm.
but there isn't one sort of clear path because it's like one of those things where you kind of look at it and go, okay, go to school, make things happen that way, but you can also get into it just, you know what I mean, hard work and graft, get into industry. Ooh,
Yeah, okay. I'm still here. Sorry.
No worries. But yeah, why did you choose school over, like, you know what I mean, just feet first in?
Yeah. So yeah, I jumped in right away. I mean, I was creating content before I was actually even in school. I thought that, my goal was ultimately to I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want to be Robin. Everybody wants to be Batman. And so in that sense, I was like, well, I want to check every single box.
Mm-hmm.
And so the type of person I am, if I get into something, I go crazy and I push it to that limit to where anything that you do, if you do it at a higher enough level, it's going to become difficult. It's going to become hard. There's going to be a point where, it gets draining. And
Mm.
so I thought the same thing with film was like, let me learn everything. I want to know the beginning, the why, the how, the underlining issue, and all of the history and the details that go into why we do things the way we do them. And that way I can know and feel comfortable breaking those rules. And so school was definitely something that I wanted to do. I later learned that, like, and my grandma used to say this to me because I'm from Georgia, right? So my grandma used to say, like, there's the man who read the book, and then there's the man who wrote the book.
Mm.
Um, and so you got to remember that the guy who wrote the book, there's probably something he didn't put in there. And he's probably writing another book at some point. So so I always put more value in getting out there, getting experience, knowledge, training, and experience together is great. But look, you can get knowledge, you can get training, and you can get experience from being in the field.
Mm.
Um, so you don't have to sit in the classroom, because most of the stuff you learn in the classroom, it's just sort of underlining issues. The film industry and most industries are moving so fast in this technological age that most of what you learn is more of a reference point. It's not the equipment that you're going to be touching. It's not the way you're going to be doing things when you actually get out there, especially at your entry level that you're going to start at.
Mm. No, I understand that. Like, because like this is the thing, like with regards to the sort of march of technology and everything like this, like 10 years ago, what like in comparison to what is out there and what you can do today
Mhm.
on like, okay, maybe you like 10 years ago you had to spend 100 grand to like get something done. Now you can do it for maybe 10, maybe even less than that, if it like depending on what type of production you want to do. Now, do you think like if you had to do it again today, would you go back to school or would you like take a different path, do you reckon, with the advances?
Yeah, I would still go to school, because some of the biggest benefits that I got from school wasn't the things I learned about um, my craft. It was the relationships that I build. It was the understanding of the different types of cultures and people that are, endeavoring in the same place that I am. It was the sense of group belonging to, like, so again, I think that goes back to the relationships. And also there are times when the technology doesn't work. There are moments when the technology stops, and then we have to say, okay, well, how else can we do this? And then we
Yeah.
go back to the old film days, and we go back to the old lighting days, the old lighting techniques, and these more practical approaches. So it's just a whole nother layer that if you hadn't done the school route, you wouldn't be able to reference this knowledge, this information, in order to solve for yes. And then obviously the network, to me, is just the overwhelming resource that you get from school.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I hear that because yeah, networking is half the battle, and you'll be amazed
Mm-hmm.
at what comes out of that sort of network.
I think like I was telling my pal, I was like, look, the education that you get at University of Southern California, or the education that you get at, at the University of Georgia, is not that different from the education that you're going to get at like Harvard, Princeton, or Cambridge or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not that different. What's different is the people that's sitting next to you in class, the people that are teaching you, the groups of the people that you're going to be alumni with when you leave, when you walk into an office, and you and I, we have a reason to believe that we are connected and we're similar. We like the same things because we went to the same school, whether we like the same things or not, whether we think the same way or not. We went to the same school. You sat in next to my son, my cousin. These are the people who were controlling the world who sit in those classrooms. I think I forget who it was. Somebody was talking about their class, like just there's a normal class that they sat in, it was like Bill Clinton and like Kim Jong-un and like somebody else. And like the teacher was another person. And they were like, this was my class, and so like I could like reach out and touch any of these people at the time. It was something crazy like that. But I think the network of the school is the biggest benefit, because the education, I mean, if the teacher is relatively decent, I mean, you can only teach what there is,
No, I hear you. Like, yes, I can just see it in a class with Clinton, Kim Jong-un. And it's like, if you're not running a country or a Fortune 500 company, you are lacking.
Right.
I was the richest man in the world. Yeah. So,
exactly.
So, like, this is the thing. Like, I have to ask. So, what film did you knock out in your film school as like the sort of your most proud work? Would you say?
There's a film called A Beautiful Thing. When I was in film school, if we're talking about during my film school time, there's a film called A Beautiful Thing. I could share that with you so that you could share that as well. But A Beautiful Thing is a story that we kind of just conjured up in film school. We had to create a script, and it had to include a group that would classify as a underserved group. So we chose the ADA, I mean, it was a story about a deaf girl and her love journey, and we were super proud about how that turned out. It did very well, and it was kind of sort of that first layer of saying like, wow, like my ideas do work. Like, because at first you shoot a lot of music videos and a lot of weddings and a lot of things that just kind of happen in front of the camera. You just make them look pretty. But then you kind of have to say, this is what's going to happen. This is how he's going to respond. She's going to do this. This is going to happen. And then it works out. And there's that sense of like confidence that you build.
So with this, like, how did you, like, after doing that and you like basically doing film school, everything's cool, you're smiling, like going, yes, one day me and Spielberg will sit down and we'll share cocktails and drinks and have a good time. Like, how did you sort of get your feet wet in the sort of like real world of filmmaking, and what was your first job?
So like the real world filmmaking. So there's two different worlds of filmmaking: the independent world and then the studio, the big studio projects. And almost right away I was involved in the independent world in a major way, because there's an artist named Pastor Troy. And he I went to like a Hurricane Katrina relief effort. And I showed up and we were just sort of shooting. Someone said that they were like having all these artists come out and perform to raise money for Hurricane Katrina. They were a lot of like, there were a couple A-listers, and then there were some like B-list artists, but a bunch of C. And so we were like, well, we can bring our cameras out, shoot it, and make sure everyone's got content, because at that time content wasn't, this was like post 2004, so content wasn't that awesome. I mean, there's not the iPhones that we had at the moment. It's Nokia phones, and you still had to have like the little side door cameras that you get out of your local electronics store. So it wasn't that easy to get great quality content. So we were like, yeah, let's go out here, let's provide some content so that everybody has great content if they're going to show up and do these concerts for free and help raise this money. So that was my trying to give to the effort as well. Get there, and like Pastor Troy's there, and he sees us come in with all these cameras, and he's like, hey man, whose cameras are these? And I was like, these are my cameras. He was like, those your cameras? I was like, yeah, these are my cameras. And he was like, yo, can you make a movie? And I was like, yeah. And so yeah. And that was sort of, we ended up having Pastor Troy, CeeLo Green, Sierra, a bunch of real actors at the time.
Yeah.
And then some other actors who had coming up through the actual acting ranks in this film. It was a pretty cool project. It hit the map in Atlanta pretty big. It's definitely one of those films where you say, like, now in my career, I kind of just take it and move it down the chart. Like, hey, okay, like, look at these other projects first. But at the time, it was definitely the thing that moved the meter for me.
I can imagine. Just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna help out with this relief. Just like, yeah, just a little bit of film in here. It's like, hey, wow, that's fancy equipment you got there. Can you do a documentary?
Yeah, that was what it was. So we started making a film. They had like no script. There was no script at all for the film. There was just like here's the bullet point outline.
Yeah.
It was like, this person does this and then this person does that. And then one moment. Hello, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So yeah, I mean, there was no script. Essentially there was a bullet point outline, like, okay, this guy doesn't like this guy, and then he does this, and then this happens, and then it kept getting more and more kept being added to it. And it was like, I was like, look, guy's paying great, he's got great notoriety, we got lots of celebrities, we're gonna make this film one way or the other. You're right.
Yeah, you know what? Like the thing what trips me out is the way you said there was like, like just an outline, bullet points, everything like this. If like they make $1 million feature films just like that, it would seem. It's like on the regular. It's like going, what? It's like, what's the script? It's those over there. So, yeah.
Like, what's really happening here? What is going on? I think at one point when in the editing process, my pals and I had like a counter on the screen for how many times people would just randomly give each other 5, and we were like, because that was sort of the thinking mechanism of a number of the few characters. They would just randomly like just give each other 5. I mean, it'd be like 5 or 6 handshakes, daps in the middle of like a 3-minute conversation. It'd be like, what is going on? Yeah, it was quite funny. Yeah,
God, that must have been a hell of a challenge, just bringing order to that all, because look, you're like going, everyone giving daps, 5s, and like, to go, okay, I've got a coherent story at the end of it, and it's your first time doing it. Well done.
I mean, we learned a lot, and we grew, and ultimately the audience of the film was excited and happy with the final product. And again, it took a major step for us, for sure.
So like, this is the thing. So did you just continue on in sort of independent cinema, independent filmmaking for a considerable amount of time before you sort of got your sort of break into like not the sort of more like commercial, or I should say the more Hollywood machine type side of things?
Yeah, I mean, we did a couple things here and there. 2007, 2008, we were still doing independent stuff, but by the time 2009 came around, I had already had sort of a reputation in Atlanta for like, here's the guy who you kind of want to talk to if you're doing like independent film. And there were already just a couple studios there, Screen Gems and maybe like one other studio, but there were no major studios in Atlanta like there is now. Now there's like every major studio in the world has a location in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so by that time, I got a call from a guy said, "Hey, we're gonna do a comic book series in Georgia. It's gonna be funded by the American Movie Classics." And I was like, okay, they make movies, don't they just like air classic movies? It's a channel called American Movie Classics. And then the guy was like, yeah. So we had like this big meeting and they said, well, we started making original content because Netflix and so do you mind if I take a moment? I'm sorry, my irrigation guy just showed up. Okay. I just need like 5 minutes.
No problem at all. Okay.
I'm so sorry. No. I'll back up a little bit so you have a good. Yeah, so there's a good editing point. I'll back up a little bit. So yeah, I mean, essentially, I get a call from some of my pals saying, "Hey, I got some studio guys that they're interested in doing a comic book series." And I was like, "Okay," and they're like, "Yeah, A.U.M.A.S, American Movie Classics," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And they're like, "Well, yeah, let's get you introduced to the team." And I meet the team, and they want to do. It's a zombie project, and I'm like, and it's a cartoon, and like, oh no, it was a comic book, but it's gonna be real live action. Long story short is the project is The Walking Dead, and we're shooting down in the sticks in Georgia, and it was just a very, very, very big entry into the studio world because I mean they had a great team. The first season budget wasn't anywhere near where it ended up being, but that's how most series are, right? They start off with a reasonable budget, and then the more people watch, the more the studio justifies spending money. And it was just zombies and Rick Grimes, the UK American.
Yes, adoptive American from the UK. Yeah,
exactly.
Before this, his biggest part was in Love Actually. That's where most people in the UK were like, you're the guy, the creepy guy who stalked Keira Knightley. Yeah, like,
exactly. It threw me for the biggest loop when they were saying like I was looking at the script and we get into sort of our first table reads and I'm at the very edge of the space and and he sits down at the Rick Grimes seat and I'm like looking at Andrew and I'm like, this is the Southern deputy guy. And then he turns on his American accent. And that's just the thing. I'm working on a project right now where we're on a delay because we have to try to get these English actors into the States, but we can't because our borders are close to you guys for whatever reason.
I wonder what that reason could be.
Yeah. I mean, I know why, but I don't think we are in a position to tell someone we don't want their COVID. Like we're the COVID capital. So but yeah, I mean, you guys are really good at doing our accents. We're not so good at doing your accent. Yeah.
Well, look, try for just for myself, just for my curiosity, ask for a portion of chips with an English accent.
A portion. Okay. Okay. May I have a portion of chips? Oh my terrible. Terrible.
It's like, look, it'll be like me. Look, this is how, look, I don't do an American accent, but it's like,
I don't do.
Could I borrow a cup of brown sugar? It's like, you see?
So I think the problem is, because I'm from Georgia, and so the Southern accent isn't as off the page for me as it is for a lot of Americans. But I think the overall perception is that like all of our accents are Southern accents. Whereas I'm sure there's a dialect that we typically go to, or at least it sounds like we go to for English.
No, like this is the whole thing. Like like the reason why most like Brits will go to a Southern accent is because it's like, yes, they have a little bit more fun with it. It's like, yeah, there's a more of a comic twang. It's like, okay, if you're over here in like the UK, like some people like, oh yeah, like if it was English, they're like going, oh, why don't you do it with the Scots? And like they'll like, have a go with that, and like yes, and the Scots will have a go with like the English, Welsh, back, forth, everything like this. That's the only reason. But yes, they're like the United States of America has many dialects, some which I can comprehend, and some which just what? What did you just say?
Yeah. Yes. So my native accent is one of those. What did you just say? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were to, if you to, if I had to come on the show and we'd start talking right away and I was in my accent, you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand what I'm saying.
I think I could.
Okay. Well, let's go.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So we're gonna do the rest of this interview in my native accent. Okay. Not the rest of it, but some of it.
Like this is the thing. Yes, this is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde like portion of this. Go for it.
Sure. Do you understand that? That's like one word, but the rest of it you can't really understand because I can understand the rest of my accent.
I see. You just speed it up. Okay, yeah, I can understand your accent. I don't know. I'm not too sure people at home would comprehend it, but yeah,
I mean, most of them know what I'm talking about anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different in the South, right? It's a lot. You get the super slow accent with man, because the slow version of my Southern accent is more of like a TI type of. It's like a lazy type of thing, man. I just talk the way, you know, it makes sense to me to, you know, I'm just trying to communicate straight to you how it is, man. But then the other version of that is a very fast, very, very bit off words where everything's bit off at the end of the beginning of it because I'm trying to tell you, but just at the end of it, you know, and I don't really say all the words that you understand like that, you know, whereas like I assume you understand everything I'm saying because I'm not really going to say it and I'm too much in a rush to say the words.
Well, put it this way, yeah, if you had to give testimony, I think you might be in trouble, but that's another story. But yeah, so this is the thing. Yeah, like Game of Thrones and like this is the thing. You have a entrepreneurial streak, and I think it was kind of found when you were doing the music videos for locally. Was that locally in Georgia or was that like further afield?
Yeah, locally in Georgia and all the Georgia, Southern, Alabama, Florida areas, we were shooting. I just kind of got used to working for myself. Then I actually went and to pay for my final years of college, I actually went and joined the police department and worked for them for a while. And I realized that like, well, I never had any plans on staying in the first place, but that's when I realized that like, yeah, like that I can't do I have to have my flexibility and my freedom to sort of move how I want to. And, you know, even now I've been offered several times some pretty decent spots at like some studios and some production companies and some entertainment groups. But I mean, it's just like, it had to be like a king ransom for me to give up my freedom and flexibility, you know? Yeah.
Because like, this is the thing, like with regards to sort of like when I hear music videos, I kind of put them in the sort of same realm as wedding videos, sort of payment wise. Like it's one of those things which is incredibly demanding, and you never like you got like a bridezilla or a superstar or would-be superstar losing their mind about the smallest thing, and you're trying to keep them happy as well as like get everything done. So not the easiest working conditions, I would imagine.
No. I mean, with the wedding stuff, it's exactly what you said. It's like, you know, they give all this time and all this attention and 50 million emails
Yeah.
to you. And this is when to do this, to talk to this, don't miss this person, and make sure we get that and do this, that, and the third. Then you get there on the day of, and there's like zero considerations for what you're doing. In fact, it is like one of the only scenarios in like entertainment world where the photographer is precedent to the videographer. The photographer gets more precedent than you do. And there's they go off schedule. They're either drunk or nervous out of their mind. And that's everybody from the bride to the groom to the family. There's drama. Oh, I don't want her in any of the video. Cut her out. She, wait, but she's like a big part of everything we talked about. Wait a second, she's in. Hold on. And then it's just crazy. And like there's no resets, there's no retakes. It's all live, and no one has time for questions. Whereas the music video world is quite another beast. Where in the music video scenario, it's like you show up to shoot, and like my man's gotta like smoke his weed for a little bit. You gotta hang out for an extra 2 hours. The girls, they may be there on time. They may get lost in a locker room with someone. You never know. Everyone's changing. The people got to go shopping the day of. And then as the shady characters start to show up, the funding is always coming from the local, doughboy. It's always like, man, like. Am I gonna like you can't leave your equipment at this spot over here because there's like 5 cats that for sure will take it if you walk away. So you got to leave like one PA sitting next to the equipment. That guy may get robbed anyway, but he's the guy who signed up for it. It's a whole nother game.
You know what? I think you could actually do a little sort of like mini drama, 6-part, just like, life and times of a videographer, like in Atlanta. Just like, it sounds crazy. It sounds
it is. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I once I shoot this music video, this rapper, local guy, OJ the Juice Man, and he had a feature by a relatively popular artist named Rashida. And I was shooting the models, and one of the models just kept singing the lyrics of the song. And I was like, dude, like, well, what's with this girl in the back? Like, she just keeps singing the lyrics. Like, you are a dancer, dance to the music. And roll playback, action. And she starts, as soon as the lines came around, she starts singing the lines again. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Pull her out. So finally, I pulled this model out, and then OJ the Juice Man comes out. His eyes are like big, like super big. You tell he's like, hi. And he's like, hey, bruh. I'm like, what's up, man? He like, look, Rashida said you pulled her out the video and you kicked her out the video. I said, what? Rashida ain't even here yet. He was like, yeah, you just kicked her out. It was the girl. I was like, oh, shit. So I didn't even know that the girl I was telling to stop, that's why she was singing the lines the whole time, because that was the artist that had the feature on there. But that was on me.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know.
How was your working relationship for the rest of the day with her?
I told him, I said, look, pretend like, do whatever you need to do because, make like you got at me or whatever, because I get it. Like, that's a big fuck up, yeah.
Oh, damn. So what would you say was the biggest lesson, your biggest takeaway for your time in like doing music videos? Like, apart from, take your expendable PA with you just in case.
Right. It's a lesson that sort of like comes from the wedding world, and like you said, the videographer world was like just maintain cool and calm, right? Just be cool, maintain calm, and when it gets chaotic, then if you can't see, and I hate to make this comparison because my brother was actually a soldier and he went to war. And I, during the cop work, I had a few moments where it got crazy. I hate to compare, apples to giant pumpkins, but the cats who survive these crazy encounters are the ones that remain calm and the ones that can keep thinking. Because if you get caught up in the chaos and you start freaking out, your brain stops using the capacity that we're able to use, the 10% that we're able to use, right? So so I just figure like the best way to deal with all these chaotic scenarios is to maintain calm. Like these crazy things are gonna happen. There's gonna be a tiny little cable missing. There's gonna be a dead battery. There's gonna be a late person. There's gonna be a document that somebody doesn't want to sign. There's gonna be a diva that shows up. Something's gonna happen, and it's just like, look, like let's maintain calm. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we need to do, and let's solve for yes, because the moment you start freaking out, then you have just proven it's just like being on a flight, right? When the plane shakes and it goes crazy, everybody look right at the flight attendant, like, because if she's still like walking like it's normal, then we good. You know what I'm saying? But if she look concerned, we're like, uh-oh,
yeah,
something ain't right. I mean, that's just like the pilot come across and go, oh, damn,
this is your captain speaking. I like to say this: make your peace with your maker, and good luck.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so it's about keeping that calm and just trying to make sure that you are the person that and a lot of times I say like experience, cut your teeth doing those things, cut your teeth doing all those other projects that like teaches you, because a lot of times I tell people all the time, I'll fix something on set or we'll solve a problem and I'll say I'd love to say that it was a great genius idea by me, but the reality is I just seen this before. It seems like you would never see this before, but I seen this before, so it's really all it is.
Yeah, like this is the thing. When I've spoken to a number of people which have worked in the sort of film industry, like they sort of do the whole starting out realm of things, like a lot of them sort of do the whole sort of wedding sort of like scene. Also, like I haven't, like you're the first person I've actually spoken to who's done the music video side of things, but it seems like all of you guys have to do this sort of baptism of fire with regards to those weddings. And like, it's one of those things where I think if you haven't done that, if you haven't gone through that sort of like micro hell period, because like everyone seems to be in it for about a year and they're like, no, I'm never, ever, going back. But it's one of those things which like sort of arm them up, giving them their armor for whatever sort of film project they do in the future and push them forward.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think like if you haven't gone through your boot camp training phase of whatever you do, right? Like whatever your thing is, like I'm sure even with like your setup that you have now with your podcast, you've gone through some interviews and some conversations with like lesser equipment, with like a personality that was just like plain old awkward. I mean, you've had coworkers that just didn't know when to jump in and wouldn't jump in, or jumped in, walked over you. I mean, just things like if you don't go through the craziness, then how are you going to be prepared for when it goes awry and you have to right the ship again? You're going to walk away. You're going to quit because you don't really see a way forward. And so I just think that it's important to train harder than you actually play. And just to go ahead and get through it. And if you don't get through it, it's because you didn't love it. Because love makes us ignore the craziness of a situation. So if you love it enough, you'll get through that madness, those moments. You'll say, this could be better. We can fix this. Let's not give up, and you keep going.
Yeah. What would you say has been one of your most, not, I won't say mad times, but fun or interesting times, like being on set with your crew? Like that was a fun and interesting time.
Oh man. So like fun times. I mean, they're all like, every crew and every cast and crew sort of has like this magical bond that you only have with that group, and you feel like you went away to summer camp with this group, and you have this memories in this location under these circumstances where it's that belongs only to you in them together. So I mean, a lot of them are fun, but like the crazy ones, man, we did it. Man, we did this film. The director was like a pervert. Um, um, he was like an assailant though. Like he was like trying to assault girls during the production. Like we had to like shut that down, kick the director off the set. So I'll tell you the story. So we are getting ready to film. So Eric Roberts, right? Julia Roberts, little brother or big brother, I'm not sure. He looks older. All right. So he's like the cat from Batman. He's like Falcone from Batman or whatever. And then like so he's there, the actors there, everyone's ready. And I got the camera set, the light team, they're set, the sound team, they're good to go, props, wardrobe, everybody's set. I got check off from everybody. I walk up to the director. I'm like, all right, cool, your floor, because I'm the DP. I give it to the director. The director says, he looks at everybody and he goes, okay, go. And I go like, what? And then Eric Roberts look at him, was like, and I'm looking around, everybody's like, he's like, you go ahead whenever you go, just go. And I was like, hey, oh, hold on, I got a problem with the camera. Hang on, everybody take 5. Can we take 5? And the director goes, cool. You got a problem? Cool. So everybody leave, and I go up to the director. I'm like, hey man, so when you get ready to call action, you gotta say like, lights, sound, and they're gonna say sound speeding. You say camera, and the camera guy's gonna say camera's rolling, and then action. You get welcome to the whole sequence. Let's get the slate in the person slates, and then action. He said, okay, cool. So I let everybody leave because I didn't want to like endure the embarrassment that the director of the project did not even know how to call action. I think a kid knows you got to say action.
Well, it's one of the standard things. Look, it's one of like lights, camera, action. Look, I not like the sounds, like the sound part. Yeah, no, but it's one of those typical things where lights, camera, action. And it's like what? Like where did he?
That's what makes it so unbelievable. Is that like? I understand if maybe because he had directed a movie before, or at least he showed us something that he directed, and then he said just go, right? So I was like, okay, cool, but like even if you want to say go, because sometimes when I'm directing, instead of saying action, I'll say and action whenever you're ready, like because I don't want them to like jump. When you say action, people sometimes jump into it, right? It's like they got to go right away, like a gun just went off at a race. Right. But sometimes I'll say stick your time in, jump in when you're ready, or action when you're ready. So I understand that. But like getting the sequence to get the cameras and the sound and the lights and the slate going, that ain't an artistic or vibe choice, right? No. You got to do that, right? So everybody leaves the room, they come back. Everybody gets loaded in. Everybody, finally the makeup department does their final checks, the lights person power up, he looks back to me because you don't want to roll those cameras and you don't want to roll those microphones until it's time, because that creates a data problem. I'm sure you can imagine having a bunch of data that you have to like store and keep, right? And imagine these 10K cameras and 8K cameras and 6K cameras, right? And then imagine these audio files where you have like 90 files in a day. You have 90 files in a day, and you have to try to find a sync point for each one of them. I mean, you have to find sync points. I'm sure you already know what it's like to let the file roll for 2 minutes, and then you got to try to find that beginning point. It's a nightmare. So you don't roll this stuff until you get the code to go to roll it. Everybody loads in the room. Eric Roberts is there, and I'm behind the camera. I'm like, all right, cool. The floor is yours. He looks at Eric Roberts. He looks at everybody, and he goes, okay. He turns around to me right in front of everybody. He goes, hey, what was I supposed to say again? Got to be kidding me. Man, Eric Roberts looked back at me and he said, all right, boss. All right, you got it. You got it. You got it. Go ahead. And I just said, okay, guys, cameras, we just got it rolling. I mean, that just to show you sort of like the foundation of what we're dealing with this production. Like the director he didn't even know how to get an action sequence going. It was crazy.
That's insane. No, because look, look, like, because come on now, I don't look to. Okay, I can understand if they were a runner. Yeah, okay. What, like, okay, you're a runner. Okay, what am I ready to run for? Whatever, like, this person needs or that person needs, and like, yeah, you can get that wrong quite easily, like. But everything else, they're like to be on a professional set. Okay, not unless if you have rabbits in the headlights type situation. Everyone has to have a certain level of experience going in, not to be like, okay, what does the director say? It's like, and you're the director. No, that you got to have like done short films, long films, like a whole heap of things before you get in there, before you're in charge of everything. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I've noticed a lot when you're coming up through the system. I don't really consider myself out of coming up. You know, I'm definitely not where I want to be.
Yeah.
For sure, far away. But when you're really, really in the thick of it, you'll do a lot of ghost directing, because you'll find yourself on set with people who know less than you. People, you'll find yourself with directors that know less than you. Once you get to a certain level where you get to these producers and these studio heads and, you know, these areas where it's one thing, because ultimately they hire you for your artistic choice and your ability to direct. But at a certain level, people are like saying, okay, you're going to be the director. You're the artistic choice for this project. I may know how to direct. I certainly know enough about directing and producing to get this done, but you're the director of this project. At the studio level, there's a number of people, from your DPs to your producers to your other people on the project, who know what they're doing, especially as it move above sort of the producers and directors, who understands what's going on. But and when you're coming up through the system, you're being hired by people as a DP who don't know how to direct. They just say, like, I have a vision, but I don't know how to make it look good in the camera, or I don't know how to light it, or I don't know how the sound should be, or I don't know work around for any of these things. I haven't even gone through the gauntlet of holding a boom mic, or holding the camera, or adjusting the iris and setting focus, or dealing with the slate and editing. I haven't dealt with any of that stuff. So, but I have the money or the power or whatever it is that I have that's going to give me the ability to hire you to do it, which is fine. Like, you're here for the job a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hear that. But like, surely if that person lacks the experience, like operating the camera or basically being on a movie set or a television set, or like just like a video set in any form or way, surely that person should just be the producer rather than the actual sort of director. Like, look, what does a producer do? Make sure everything is there for the actual film itself, rather than sort of like going, okay, right, let me direct this. You don't know how to direct. Well, that's madness.
And that's just it. You know, a lot of times you get in a scenario where a person's just not okay with being a producer. They want to be the person to say, okay, can you tell you what, just maybe she does it like this, or I mean, surprisingly, most people just want to say action. This guy didn't even want to say action, even though action was a thing, apparently. I've been on sets, I won't say names, I've been on set where the director doesn't even look at the action. They're not even looking at a monitor. They basically scream action from another location on the set, We're at a house filming. They scream action from another location, and literally is reading the script. And it's like you're essentially calling action and being the scripty. You're literally just following the script. If they say everything that was said on the script, they're like, hey, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I actually tested it one time. Everything was so wrong with the scene, the way they moved, the way the camera, I like the camera, like I was operating camera, the camera went out of focus at a bad time. And I was like, you good with that? And they were like, yeah, sound good to me. And I was like, but I think we need to do another one. Like there was a bad focus moment. This person missed the mark. This person did this, that, and the third. And they're like, okay, let me see it. And I'm like, but we almost just moved forward. Like you, yeah. I mean, it's just some, you know, but that's when you're in the FUD. Like that's when you're down, climbing out of the mud, trying to get to that point where everyone around you is as good as you at what they do.
Yeah. I would imagine you can get away with that maybe more if it was like a regular TV show where you've got a crew coming in week after week, if you get what I mean. So they kind of like, okay, they just need a director there to like, you know what I mean? Go, yeah, action. That's like set up, like, okay, set up a shot here, and like, yeah, most probably cameraman like yourself and sounding people like, oh yeah, but like we typically do it this way. And then like the director kind of sits in the chair, looks important for a little bit, but it's pretty much on autopilot compared to a feature film where everything is like fresh and like you've got to keep on like changing up on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true. I imagine a lot of sitcoms where the set is the same set, the lighting scenarios, the blocking, everything's gonna be remotely the same every single time. The director can take a lot off. I've directed a few series where, you know, when we shot primarily in this one location, it was a sitcom, it happens in a house. Once you set your lighting, you kind of shoot out all the scenes from that one scene. So if you're shooting a scene that takes place, a film that takes place in a house, block shooting, you light the kitchen the way that you want it. You shoot every single scene in the film, whether it's scene 1, scene 22, scene 35, scene 69, scene 94. You shoot all those scenes that happen in the daytime in the kitchen. Then you change your lighting slightly bit with the colors and the temperature, and you shoot all the scenes that happens in the night, in the evening time in that scene. Scene 2, scene 34, scene 55, scene 91. Then you change it a little bit more for nighttime, and you shoot all the scenes that happen in the nighttime in that scene. Then your day is over. If you do that 1 or 2 days or 3 days or a week, then you take your cameras and you move them all to the next room, and you shoot all your scenes for that, right? So that's block shooting. That's the way that like is most cost friendly for productions. Most productions do shooting that way. In those situations, you're 100% right. Like the director, I mean, like you don't need like. What do you mean the light's wrong? Like the lights, if it's wrong now, it's been wrong for like 22 scenes. Yeah. You know, if you know, like the camera, especially with these sitcoms where you don't get all this like dynamic motion of the camera, it's basically a lockdown shot. And and there's not a lot of blocking. It's just real corny blocking, you know, it's a sitcom, right? You don't have those issues. But when you're talking about a film, yeah, I mean, you need to have I think the director should always have eyes on what's going on. But yeah, I mean, a film, yeah, there's no way you can't see you don't see what's happening, and you're like, good take, let's move on.
Like, you know what? It makes me laugh because it irks you so. You know, it's like, I could just like, it's like. You're the director. Stop.
Yeah.
It's strange. No, it is strange. It's very strange. But like, this is the thing. Were sort of things like this the sort of thing what sort of gave you the impetus to like go, you know what? I can direct my own feature films and stuff like this. Was that the sort of like spark?
Yeah. I like I said again, I've been directing since almost right out of school because with the Pastor Troy project. It's just a lot of times when I'm directing, I'm getting funding and not really getting paid. I'm getting funding for the project, on the independent level. You're not really a lot of time getting paid. So a lot of times I will work with other productions and other teams and get paid by them. So, but these sort of interactions are what led me to say, okay, I'll no longer work in those capacities.
Mm.
Only time I take a non-directorial role is with like studio projects. Like I'm no longer game for that madness we just finished talking about. Yeah, so I don't really take. I mean, okay, it's got to be a director that I've watched, I've seen them, I know they know their stuff. We're gonna make some amazing stuff, but no longer like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and like if I don't know who you are or know your brand, I know your studio,
Mm.
I'm directing, or I can refer you to someone. Um, yeah, because it's just you get on set and all these talents and all these crew have dedicated their time to learning the script and learning, what they need to get done. And you see the chaos start to happen, and you sort of feel this sense of like responsibility to make sure they didn't waste their time. And so you end up the one that is having sort of the pressure of what the director really should be bearing,
Mm.
making sure that they get from this production what they need, or what they at least deserve for giving their time. Because even if they're getting paid, it's an independent film. No one's getting paid what they deserve. So yeah.
Yeah. And like with like you mentioned like yeah, climbing out of the mud. Like
Mhm.
okay, when you sort of ascend and get out of the mud, what would you like to be doing?
Oh man, I just only want to make the films that I am directing, producing, right? So I mean, honestly, I want to produce this one series. I really am not even interested in directing it. It's a massive project. Um, it takes place in 950. The story takes place in 950 BC. Um, in Ethiopia, Eritrea territory. It's based on the Queen of Sheba.
Oh,
Um, yeah, yeah. So I see that's a good story. It's already but I want to produce these stories. I have a story that I'm developing now that we're in pre-production on with the UK delays. I am directing, but I'm also producing. I want to be an independent studio instead of an independent filmmaker, where we create our own uh stories, and they're the stories the scripts that we vet, the scripts that we buy. Yeah.
independent studio. That is a tricky thing to pull off. The reason why I say it's a tricky thing to pull off, because every time I sort of see independent studios, they sort of fall into the trap of doing one sort of genre again and again
Mm-hmm.
and again. Like, would you be like, as an independent studio, would you be doing one genre? Or like, look, you mentioned, yeah, Ethiopia at 905 BC. You know what I mean? That is like period drama, and period dramas are not cheap, to say the least.
They're like 101. Like you don't do a period drama as an independent production, period. That's like a rule. Like we're already like just tuck that rule. It was like psh,
Yeah,
we're breaking that in half.
yeah.
So which is the reason why which is most likely the reason why we haven't got it done at this point. Because I mean, you talking about wardrobe, makeup, location design, accent, development of props and everything around it, as opposed to, do you have a shirt like this in your closet? It's very different, as an independent film, so, um, but yeah, no, I definitely see ourselves as a time period, a fantasy, sci-fi,
Mm.
uh, sort of lane. Yes, for sure. And the way you typically see it is independent studios will like for example, they'll come up with a project that they want to develop. They'll get it through the stages.
Mm.
We'll have everyone on board that they like, and then all of a sudden they will talk to a major studio, and that studio will be like, awesome, we love this. Let us check all your blocks. Let me make sure that you have the right cast. Let me make sure you have the right the script's good to go, and let us troubleshoot this, and we'll add more money, and we'll package it, and we'll make sure that it doesn't have an independent presentation. Because we already trust your independent production company to make a good product.
Yeah.
So even the only way that, so like major studios, they, even when they create sort of all the different genres, they're still sort of the umbrella studio for the smaller company that is specializing in that lane, if that makes sense. Just like a hospital will have doctors that has specialties. Well, if those doctors left the hospital, they would have their own practice and they would still specialize in the one lane. But inside the hospital, it appears the hospital is doing everything because they have those specialties inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Like basically, like for example, like with regards to what you've just said to me, like the production company, what jumps into my head immediately is Bad Robot, because you see, basically they had, like when they started out, they were doing sort of small sci-fi things, and then like they really sort of landed the plane with doing Lost, the TV show. And then basically from there, it was like, sci-fi after sci-fi after sci-fi, like small stuff. Oh God, why am I blanking on the name of that film? You know, where New York was attacked by that monster? Cloverfield. There you go. Yeah. Doing Cloverfield. Okay. Yeah. Like sci-fi. One of the things about sci-fi, it's kind of strange because you can do cheap, like, well, budget-friendly sci-fi, but there are a couple of moments where you see where all the money goes. It's like, okay, like Cloverfield, for example, like, the Cloverfield monster when it comes out on the final scene, and like basically the smaller parasites which come out and like taking people down. But apart from that, it's just a conventional film, just shot with people and
shaking the camera around, and you know, I mean, it's just like a guy running around like, oh my God, you know.
It's like,
but, straighten my Cloverfield world out.
But was it 10 Cloverfield Lane? Like how many people were in that? It was, you know, it was like 3 actors, 1 set. Well, a couple of sets, and that was about it. So like,
I mean, and I think there's a major studio that's releasing that, but Bad Robot is the production company. So it's the same sort of model. So that's what I really want to, what I really want to be doing. I enjoy working for the studios. I mean, one of my, more recently enjoyable production was Mulan. We worked on Mulan, with Disney, and that team. We shot a lot of the in studio composite green screen effects in LA. I mean, that group is awesome. Working on that type of project is just amazing. And you shoot it after they already do all their, on location stuff around the globe. And then they come in and they kind of already have a vision for, we've already seen the templates and the plates that we're going to be used as backgrounds. And you come in and, those are very, very enjoyable environments. But if you really want to get down to it, it's like I said, I don't really want to work for anyone else.
So, okay, so you must be on like some mad scouting mission at this present time, trying to assemble your team, because no one does it alone. And if anyone says they do, they are arrogant as hell, So, how have you assembled? Like, do you have a team right now, or are you still in the midst of looking for the right people?
Yeah, we have a really good team. Most of them are, loosely on our team in the sense that like, we don't like, they're not working with us full time because they are, they're their own sort of independent, freelancers or independent contractors for different studio projects or independent projects. But we certainly have a group. Whenever we have a project that's in front of us, we bring them all together. I mean, our teams, it's like, I'm lucky, lucky to be able to get all these personalities to work together, all these talents to sort of see one goal. But our group is really, really good. There's a few spots that we want to fill out and get more experienced in. But for the most part, yeah, we got a team that like we're super excited about. And that's why hopefully towards the end of this year when we do this this thriller, we're hoping that we finally get to put the entire group on one film and really do some really cool stuff.
Interesting. Like one of the things I'm intrigued by is Vegas, not LA. Why is that?
Yeah. So LA is expensive as hell. So that's that part. But I actually have quite a number of clients here in Vegas that I produce content for. So whether it's TV content or broadcast content, or even promo content. So we produce content for the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the World Series of Poker. Those are just the three top dogs. I forget the WNBA Aces. So those are all sports broadcasts that we create content for or participate in their broadcasts as well. So obviously, and then LA is like a 45-minute flight and 45 minutes and $48 away. So a lot of times I leave home from Vegas, leave my house in Vegas, and I get to set at the same time as somebody coming from some of the outer cities in LA, because LA traffic ain't no joke. But I also have sort of a spot in Studio City where I kind of pay for a room with some roommates whenever I'm in town. But yeah, for most of the studios, I'm more like a day player. I kind of come in and replace people. I don't really, work sort of full time with the studios. I come in sort of on a replacement role. Of course, I'm placed in LA, pretending like I'm based there, but they don't care. They say as long as you can report, we're not providing a hotel room on this production. If you can report as a local, then we'd love to have you. And so yeah, most of what I try to give the most of my regards and focus to is sort of the independent stuff, the stuff that is where I can create it from wherever in the world where the narrative of the story is at.
Yeah, because this is the thing. How can I put it? You have taken a harder path than I think you needed to, because with regards to what you said when you're working for the for the police force, and then basically working having offers for say some permanent work. And I imagine when you were with HBO doing The Walking Dead, being local and all that, you could have been yes, you could still be working for them up until this day, I imagine. But you've taken the harder path where it's okay, yeah, don't want to get comfortable, don't want to learn and grow as much as possible, which isn't easy, but I would say is much more rewarding. Would you agree?
Yeah. So 100%, that's just it. When with the HBO Productions Game of Thrones, the production company was Big Head Little Head. And Big Head Little Head, they just turn over projects. From once one thing is done, it's on to the next, and once that's done, it's on to the next. And if you're a cinematographer, or if you're a first AC or your second AC, you're going to be doing that job for this production one day for 3 months, and then when it finishes, you got your time, maybe a week or so, you jump on a plane and you go to another place and you do the same thing, whether it's in the studio or on location. And if you do any of that for too long, it's monotonous. It just simply is monotonous. If you are a director, you're not doing that. The directors are different, right? The directors, they get kind of brought in per project. And so, yeah, any of that stuff gets monotonous. But when you are doing an independent project, you can be working on Monday Night Football one night or Mulan the next week. You can be it just the gambit runs reality TV to the Olympics. Like last week, I was shooting the Olympics. I'm sorry, the Olympics tryouts. And then this week, just the week before that, we were shooting out in the Ozarks, on a drama. So it's more entertaining and more rewarding, like you said. But it's certainly, you look around and you say, okay, you gotta be okay with how hard you work being how much you get paid. You got to be okay with that. You got to believe in you like that, because when COVID happened, everyone who was sort of reliant on, not everyone, but a lot of people who were reliant on the stability realized their stability ain't that stable unless you control the ship yourself. Because when COVID happened, I mean, I hate to say it like it, but we sped up because the big studios got shut down and nobody was checking for the little guys. So there was a lot of projects that we picked up that we would never have access to. We never slowed down.
I hear you. Now, I have to ask this question. I really do, because I would regret not doing it. Okay. Now, back in the day when Walking Dead, I don't really care about, but yeah, when you were working on Game of Thrones, did you ever sort of get sort of recording spoiler moments where you're going, oh my God, that happened? Or was it just a case of just some dope, no, nothing consequence happened where you were filming?
Are you asking during production were there sort of any moments where we sort of saw what was going to happen, was oh my God, this is yeah, I mean, all the time. It took a while for us to get used to, well, okay, so at first we didn't really know what we were shooting, because you gotta remember, this was the first of the Dragon World stuff, right? Now everybody wants to have witches and ward, all this stuff. I mean, the only thing that people had as a reference point before then was Harry Potter and Harry Potter and what was the other thing? Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah. So, and then this was what this is supposed to be for adults. This is what? There's witches and giants and what? And so we were shooting a lot of things that had a lot of green all around it.
Yeah.
And no one could really understand what was going on. We shot it, we understood, dialogue is dialogue once you start shooting dialogue. I was primarily based at Winterfell. So Belfast, in Belfast, Paint Hall Studios was Winterfell. So we primarily shot out there. And so I had a lot of understanding of sort of what was going on in that sense. The beheading of the guy who runs away from the army. I mean, sorry, from his post in season 1, episode 1.
Yeah,
we're like, okay, that's pretty extreme. Make the kid watch. Okay, but we didn't have any idea. Now the first season comes out. No one who was on location in Belfast had any idea what they were shooting in New Zealand, had any idea what they were shooting in Morocco. We didn't know. So when we were at the premiere watching it, when we kind of was man, that was really good. And that was really good. And then there was a week long when it came out at the festival, Sundance. And we were able to watch all of the episodes. We only saw episode 1 at the premiere. And then we saw all the episodes and we were hey, this is going to be really good. Then the reviews came out and people were yeah, it's going to be really good. But then no one really watched it. And luckily there's nerds in the world who was well, we're going to watch this. And then the nerds kind of recruited everyone else because they were dude, this show's really, they literally, the stories about people getting their friends, sitting them down and saying, hey, you got to watch the show. I'll rewatch it with you. That was when we started being oh, this is really good. Are we going to be on for the second season? What's going on here? Are we going to get to come back? Second season, a lot of us got to come back. And that's when we really started communicating with everybody. Hey, so what's happening over there? Because over here, this is what happened. what's happening over there. You know, we're trying to figure out what's going on between all the different sets. Because you don't get a full script, you don't know what's going on in all these different places. Even within one set, there's two film crews. So there would be Unit A and Unit B. Unit B was not B-roll. Unit B was shooting a scene while Unit A is shooting a scene. You didn't get the script that Unit B had. Unit B didn't get the script that you had. So you would see things happening and you'd be like, what? Well, what led to this? You know? And then finally it would come out and you'd be like, because when you do the premiere, you get to watch like first season, the first episode, right? It come out. By the time season 3 came out, we knew that the budget had skyrocketed, that they were going to have their pick of the litter, and that a lot of people weren't going to be able to come back, you know. So I made it through season 3, the first year of riches, where it was like $9 million an episode. But then again, you know, at a certain point, it was the name game, even at like all the levels. Like they had the best PAs in the world. They had the best ACs. They had the best, you know, because this was the number one show in the world. And it held that title for like 5 years. So at a certain point, it was, you know, they ended up rotating us out. You know, I'm climbing the ladder. I was glad to be there for 3 seasons. It was pretty cool.
You were there for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, were you there for you were in Winterfell, right?
Yes.
So did you record any of the Red Wedding?
No. So the Red Wedding took place in I forget the guy's castle, but it wasn't the Winterfell house. It was in Winterfell, but not at the the castle, Winterfell castle. So but yeah, no Red Wedding. And again, the Red Wedding was another of those things where it's like, I mean, so what are we gonna do now? Like, you know, and again, you know, I mean, Ned Stark getting his head cut off, you know, what's this like? Yeah, like how the main character, they just hold on, you know. So, you know, that's how we begin to kind of grasp that, like, we were dealing with something that was going to be different from like, they didn't care. They kill anybody. They didn't care. It only got to when it was like season 4 and there was just so much money on the table and there were certain characters that you just couldn't kill for money purposes. But like season 1, 2, and 3, I mean, everybody's head was on the table. It was possible.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. No, because like, this is the thing. Like, yeah, first season of Game of Thrones, I watched the first 3 episodes. I was like, no, I've got to just watch them all back to back. And like, you could get away with that in the first season. Second season, it was kind of like you could just about get away with it. Third season, no. And that Red Wedding episode, oh my God. It was like, oh, I love you.
Yeah.
Oh, you are this. Like, I was like, and it was like, oh, I have new life growing in. I was like, oh my, I saw what happened to her. I was like, oh my Lord, what the hell? I was just like, no.
Yeah, HBO. And that's what I love so much about this industry. So HBO and AMC, right? Less than 15 years ago, HBO wasn't really, they didn't call it HBO, they called it Home Box Office, right?
Yeah.
And AMC was American Movie Classics, right? These are both channels, television channels that their business model was to take these old movies that had aired in the theater and play them on television at a certain time, right? So we'd take Bad Boys 2, whether it's American Movie Classics or Home Box Office, and we'd advertise for a week and we'd say, you're going to be able to watch Bad Boys 2 at 12 o'clock on Thursday night. And you can count on the audience tuning in because they have this channel, they're going to tune in and watch a movie that they wouldn't otherwise get to watch, right? Without paying Blockbusters or something like that. Then Netflix comes along and Netflix says, well, actually, they'll be able to watch whatever they want to watch. As long as we can license it, they'll be able to watch all these movies all the time, as many times as they like. Um, but they don't have to wait. They don't have to set their DDR. They don't have to program it. They can play when they want to. And these companies started to see like a massive plunge in their subscription and in their business model. It was a big problem. So they said, well, how do we fix this? That's when they started creating their own content. I mean, they already had, Soprano, and they were developing the Wire, and they were developing what was the one inside the jail where they're inside the jail?
Oz.
Oz, and all these shows that they said, look, the history of Netflix, when Netflix came about, immediately the business model was like, content is king. These guys are procuring content and making it available at all times. So we have to create content that they cannot license because we're not going to sell it to them, right? We're not going to give it to you. You're only going to be able to watch it on our platform. And that is really the evolution. I love the way that the film industry will change no matter what happens. Just like even now, right? You're seeing movies like Space Jam, and what was the other movie that just came out? So Space Jam just came out, and there was another movie that just came out where
Black Widow.
Black Widow, and these movies where people are starting to look. Hang on one second. I feel a sneeze coming on. It's not happening. But all these films are coming out, and people are starting to look at them. It's like, well, this does not look like what I expect it to look like. This is not. Maybe this felt a little bit corny, or that was a lot more of this, or something going on here. Well, studios have abandoned the $200 million budget strategy because everyone is watching everything on streaming. The theater's gone, right? You make a movie, you put it in a theater, you can sell the movie to a theater for a lot of money because you pay for a ticket, you pay for $3 popcorn, you pay for a $2 Coke, you pay for a $3 hot dog, you pay for some candy, you sit there and you watch the movie one time, and if you like it, you come back again. But most likely you didn't watch it one time. You brought a wife and the kids and somebody else with you. So, I could sell my movie to the theaters, to a chain of theaters, for a ridiculous amount of money. Whereas when I sell it to a streaming platform, there's no popcorn, there's no ticket, there's no candy, there's no price per person. I mean, you can have 20 people sitting in your living room watching it with you.
Yeah.
You can watch as many times as you want to, and you can pop your own popcorn, make your own cake, whatever you want to do. The only thing that you got to do is pay the subscription that you're paying for all the other things. So the film industries are starting to create films with a smaller budget, with a more specific audience. So Space Jam, where previously would have been made to encapsulate a larger audience, just like the old Space Jam, right? Space Jam, our parents watched Space Jam, but we also watched Space Jam when we were kids, right? We loved it. We thought it was awesome. Our parents thought it was awesome. Older kids maybe thought it was awesome too. Whatever. This Space Jam, if you ain't a kid, you looking like, what the hell is this? Because the audience is very targeted now, because they're not advertising to this massive audience, because in order to do that, you have to have a much bigger budget. So the budgets are smaller because they understand that they're going to be streaming. Everything's going to be on streaming. This is the progression.
Would you say, with regards to now the rise of streaming and basically it being in full effect in in the realms of Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, HBO Max, and the last and foremost Peacock, which I think is a bit of a joke.
NBC.
Right. Yeah. Do you think it's there's influx of content, but has it brought down the quality, would you say?
And I would not say the quality's down. I say the specificity of it is more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't like Space Jam. I don't like it, right? I thought it was corny, but the reminder is that it's no longer for fans of basketball and Looney Tunes. Anyone 7 through 25. It's for fans of LeBron James, age 5 through 10. It's more specific. Whereas we would expect it to be for a broader group. We expect it to be able to like Space Jam because that was something that, like, previously they would have said, hey, this was the group that watched this when they were kids. So obviously they're going to be interested in seeing it now, even though they're adults. So let's make it so that they can watch it too, to get their money. Yeah. They're not doing that anymore. So there are projects that are being made that are specific to their audience, so that when someone outside of the audience watches it, it's in no way working for us.
Yeah. My issue with Space Jam was it was too much of it felt like a glorified commercial for HBO Max. That's all it felt like. It was like, okay, let's get all our Disney properties in. Let's get every single property we own in this, but in like a rather corny way. Like, because they did the same thing with Ready Player One, but it made actual more sense. It was like kind of a homage. It was like honoring those sort of properties which came through, and there was it was love and feeling for those properties. This was just like, hey, welcome, it's Space Jam. Okay, hey, we own the Looney Tunes, but we also own DC. Oh, wait, we own Rick and Morty as well. Hey, look at all the things we own, and you can find that all on the serververse, and that means HBO Max. Yeah, so it just was like, no.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. I felt like there were these moments that was like, man, did this get focus grouped or not? Like, did they focus group this or no? And I think that maybe they did focus group it, but like whoever they focus grouped it for, checked off on it. Like we you and I are not in the target audience. It's not for us. The acting alone.
Well, you know what I mean? Yeah, that the acting. Yeah. We smile at that. The acting.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's leave that where that's at.
Yeah. Now I have to a couple more questions, and this is the thing. Would you see you want to start a production company with regards to maybe bigger and grander things, making your own feature films, making your own series and stuff like this? Would say the streaming platforms be a place you would sort of court to get their attention, or would it be like some other medium? Would you say go with YouTube to get it out or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a conversation that we're all having at every single level all the time, because and I think it depends on what your product is. So if your product is a project that it's a great film, it doesn't have these major stars in it, that's going to make people purchase, you kind of need to go ahead and get your money up front from these streaming platforms so that people can see the film. You do like a 1 or 2 year licensing, you get it back, and then you can sort of sell it based on its reputation, right? But if you have a product that has, the popular crowd, I mean, it doesn't have to be great acting. I mean, this is the truth, right? It doesn't have to have great acting in order for it to sell. It has to have great acting for it to be a great film, but it doesn't have to have great acting for it to sell. You got Kim Kardashian in your film, right? She's willing to sell it. She's willing to promote it. Why would you go to Netflix or or HBO or anybody for that matter. I mean, unless they offer you a king's ransom, and Netflix will offer you a king's ransom because they have an algorithm that can tell them, hey, this film is worth, you're going to make the money back, you
Yeah.
know? But for the most part, you shouldn't take anything less than what you think you deserve if you got those personalities already built into your film, because you could simply go to a Vimeo or a what is it,
YouTube.
TVOD, any sort of TVOD. So YouTube, Vimeo, Amazon Prime, Google Play, which is YouTube, um, any of these sort of platforms, and charge people per transaction, because you don't need to run commercials. You don't need to have it on the YouTube. You just need Kim Kardashian to put it on her page. Boom, 24 million people. You get 1% of that. I bet you made your budget back already. You're probably going to get more like 3% of it. If she's really pushing it and she's got revenue share, she's going to push it harder.
Yeah.
So if it just really depends on what your goal is. Again, you're a new filmmaker. You want people to know that you've got it. You want the studios to hire you. You got a great product. You get, if Netflix or Hulu so happen to know about your film, listen. If that's your goal, you're not there for the money right now. You're there so you can get to the other bigger projects. Give it to them. These are recruiting. YouTube, Vimeo, film festivals. These are recruiting grounds for all of those series. I mean, you look at Game of Thrones. You look at any TV series. HBO's Euphoria. You look at any of these series, they have multiple different directors throughout the series, right? Look at Hulu's Handmaid's Tale. There's multiple different directors. They bring in the directors specific to the genre, the nature of the episode. I mean, there are reoccurring directors, but for the most part, the director's changing on an episode basis because they're shooting so many episodes at the same time. So they might see your film and say, wow, you made this Black Mirror production. Okay, we're going to bring you in for 1 or 2 episodes of Westworld because you made this miniseries and we think you'd be great for this episode. We really don't know how this is going to play out on camera, but we like sort of how this looks. So if we can sort of like take this script and make something similar to that, you can do episode 2 and episode 7 because that's where this transition that's similar to what you did happened. And so those are recruiting grounds. Their companies are paying them to go there. The companies are paying them to extract data from YouTube and Vimeo and all the other TVODs and Amazon Prime. They're extracting this data and they're saying, here are the people we need to hire. Here are the films we need to license. So it really just depends on what your business model is for your film and for your career.
No, very interesting. Like, yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a brand new, strange world out there with regards to the sort of realms of entertainment, where it's more sort of like, yes, how much time we can capture for people to return to whichever platform that might be. But but moving away from that, I have to ask now, like I often ask certain questions which like challenge someone like mentally, psychologically, and yeah, with yourself being a creative chap, I think you might be up for this challenge. Now,
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, if there was one film you could direct, what would that one film be? Like from the past, like classic, what would that one film be?
Are we remaking the film, or are we just inserting me as the former director?
Well, like basically could be remaking it, but yeah, where you have a directorial influence over it.
Wow, that's good. I love, there's a lot of films. So because all the films that I'm thinking of, I love them so much as they are. But so something that I could jump in and influence a change in. I'm still so very passionate about this one project um that I want to make in the future, the 950 BC project, that I'm going to tie it into that. I would go back to, so there's this series of like films called The Bible. Um and it's like you probably only watch them if like you were like on punishment or something and your mom was like, here, sit down and watch this.
It's like, this is why you should
Yeah.
repent.
Right, yeah. And it's like a really cool collection of stories. And I'm not like religious. But I believe people. I don't believe I'm right or wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But these stories are really cool because they kind of take you through the history of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all the way up to like Joseph, to the coming of Christ, blah blah blah. There's just, it's called the Bible. It's like these long, monotonous, boring stories about the Bible.
Mm.
And if I were able to go into to take those films and make those films, I love the stories from the Bible. They are some of the most amazing and like amazing, unbelievable miracle stories. It's up to you whether you believe them or not, but they make
It's
great
like
stories. Um,
essentially
but
to be a skeptic.
yeah, I'm skeptic.
Amazing.
But yeah, exactly. This stuff is amazing, right? It's incredible but it's a great story, right? And it's about love, and it's about belief, and it's about inspiration.
Mm.
And you can take away something so positive from all this stuff, and it can really make you a better person if you just take it for the love and the belief and the happiness of it. But what I would do was I would make them more historically accurate. There would be more Black people, for one. There would be more there are ways that you can tell stories about floods and bushes catching on fire and
Mm.
serpents turning in from sticks and bread turning into fish. There are ways you can tell those stories and make them believable. Like, there was Batman before the Christian Bale Batman, where
Mm.
it just didn't make sense. Batman made no sense. His underwear was on the outside of his pants. He's a little rich white dude that just could kick all of the dudes' butt in the streets. It didn't make any sense. But then they said, well, what if Batman was like a rich dude who like just ran away, and he met these monks in the mountain, and he trained, and then he had to meet his fear. That's why he did the bat. Oh, that makes sense. Take away the underwear. We can't explain that. Take it away. And they make it make sense, right? That's what I would do for some of these Bible stories. I think they're some of the best stories in the world. But people don't want to touch them because they're afraid.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? Like, in this day and age, well, in the realm of, yes, you can get cancelled like for like just like passing gas at the wrong time. Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's like, but
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah.
Cancel culture. So for me, so I have a controversial point of view on cancel culture. So I don't really believe that there is a cancel culture.
Like, put it this way, with regards to the realms of cancel culture, like if this was 4 years ago, I would say yes. Like cancel culture, if you're on that list, yeah, you'll be destroyed until you're nothing more than dust and atoms. No, it's the way it is. It was.
Right.
Now it's a case of like I was watching the Impulse podcast. It had Logan Paul. Was it Logan Paul?
Yep.
Yep, and KSI on the podcast, right? And KSI went, yeah. He goes, yeah, like David Dobrik. I don't know if you know him as it he's had some controversy lately with him and his like team, like his whole production team. And like KSI was like, no, it like this, like there are some people which are uncancelable. You can't cancel them because it's a case of if you get a certain amount of resources, but people backing you, you go away for a while, but you come back. And with the way the sort of bar has been moved since like 3-4 years ago, like damn, like for like soon as you had like former president Donald Trump, like, oh yeah, grab him by the pussy while he was like going for president, and that didn't phase him at all. There was a totally new standard which was put into play, which has worked its way through to now. And like, if you're caught doing something horrid to children, then by all means you will get canceled. But pretty much anything else.
Yeah. So I think, I agree. So like, I just feel like when people say like, oh, cancel culture, I think that's like, those one of those hot button terms that like, I live in America, so I'm gonna talk about it from an American point of view.
Yeah.
That's one of those hot button terms that the conservatives have sort of coined and are using to try to make it seem like a thing, just like the thing vaccine passports or door to door and all this stuff. There's no such thing as a vaccine passport. There's no thing as such a thing as cancel culture. So cancel culture is not a thing. Basically, cultures are being uncanceled. So there's always been a standard for what people are going to allow you to do in the eye of the public. Heck, in the 1800s, John Brown in America got hung because he was a landowner and a politician who responded to his constituents by telling them, I am not going to run these slaves out of this territory. I would just as soon get a rifle and run you away. They said, oh, you think you canceled, you're dead, you're hung.
Yeah.
Ellen DeGeneres got kicked off NBC in the 90s for being gay. That was the standard. Oh, you gay? You think you can put that shit on television? You're out of here. Mel Gibson he was gone for like 10 years for what he said, right? There's always been a standard for what the public will accept you to say. The difference is now that some of these cultures, the LGBT community, a lot of the Black empowerment cultures, a lot of these cultures are being uncanceled. They now have a voice. People are willing to stand up for them. They're allowed to be considered. Okay. So now you can't say those things about those people without meeting the same standard that you would have met if you said something about one of those cultures that were allowed to be a part of our society. So now you say those things about those cultures those voices have been uncanceled. So it's uncanceling that's happening there. And to your point that you made, great point. Look, Ben Shapiro can say whatever he want to say. Candace Owens can say whatever she want to say because the audience that they're saying it to is there for that. They can say, Candace Owens can say all madness she want to say. Ben Shapiro can say all the madness he want to say. Some of the stuff, most of the stuff is crazy. Some of the stuff I agree with. And they can say it to their audience, and their audience is there for it, and they're going to support them, and they're going to promote them, and they're going to make sure that they don't go out of business because they're a voice that gives them oxygen. Yeah. Just don't try to assume that you're being canceled because you want to say and hurt people in one environment and expect those same people to help you make a living off hurting them. Like, you can't go to Hollywood and make a bunch of, super conservative statements because have you been to Hollywood? I mean, have you looked around? I mean, you can't expect these people to propagate your lifestyle if you're hurting theirs. Yeah. So you just got to go to a place and be in an environment where that happens. That place used to be called America. It used to be the entirety of the place, right? The line has moved. And that's all. It's uncanceling. It's not cancel culture.
Like, this is the thing. I think some of the problems with it all, and I'm not saying just America, I'm talking about like the Western world in general. Right. Like when it comes to some of these conversations which need to be had, and like basically like because you get two sides which are not prepared to have these conversations, and then they take it too far. And I'm talking about the loony left and the crazy right. Both working in, like, I don't know what they're working towards, but they're basically It seems like they're working to just divide and conquer. And I don't like, this is the whole thing. I don't know why they would want to divide the public as a whole, to get conquered by whom. I do not know what, but that's all it's about. And when these conversations, which are not happening, or if you ever try to broach these conversations, it just turns into quite much a screaming match, and no one actually gets anything resolved or fixed. Because this is the thing, the power of conversation, decent debate, like lets ideas either grow or die. And without them, you don't get democracy. Without them, you don't get a financial system. Without them, you don't get an education system. Like, you don't get so many things. And with that, it's just getting harder in those things. And yeah, I'd say there are quite a lot of people, groups, organizations, which have now found their voices in this sort of crazy world. But it comes down to this. They may have found their voices, but like, it's a case of, if everyone's just screaming and not actually having a decent conversation, are those voices going to be truly heard still along the way?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think no matter what group or subculture or culture you identify with, the best way to help people understand your plight, and join you and better live with you, is to communicate with them. So if for example, if someone says, well, I don't believe there's systemic racism in America. I believe that the African Americans in America are they struggle because of X, Y, and Z, but because of who they are, or something like that.
Yeah.
If they struggle because of who they are, you should be able to question what they're saying, ask them where they get that from. You should have enough head about yourself to ask them where they get this from. I mean, and look, you don't have to, like, you don't owe them an education, you don't owe them teaching, you can walk away. But somebody needs to be able to ask them, where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
What evidence do you have of this? Have you considered these stats and facts? What do you think about this opinion? And sort of have an open dialogue with them, even though despite what they're saying to you could be hurtful. Because if you simply respond belligerent, which may be their impression of you in the first place, then you're just proving to them that's proof that they were right. Now, after that conversation, if this person still feels the same way, I don't think it is incumbent on, say in this scenario, the African American to continue to try to coexist with this person, because this person is actively propagating things, and they're going to vote ways, they're going to say things, they're going to believe things, they're going to do things that is going to hurt you and your life and people that you love. So to exist with this person is simply to just slowly drink poison, because they're poisoning you. They're voting certain ways, they're enacting policies, and they're spreading things that is going to hurt you. So you don't have an obligation to try to exist with this person. Get away from them, separate, be away from these people, because they're hurting you, and they think that it's okay to hurt you because that's just who you are and that's how you are, and we probably just need to deal with it. Like, we need to just deal with it.
Yeah, I hear you. And like, this is the thing. If they live in a remote community, like in the back end of like nowhere, yeah, you can like do what you said. You don't have to associate, you don't have to mix with them. But if it's a case of they're in the same city as you and stuff like this, you've got like there has to be some type of fostering of community. Like I don't mean just as in one sort of specific demographic or group, but across the whole city in some way. I don't know how like I don't know how easy that will be or how difficult that will be, but like look, you like originated from like Georgia. Now let's just say Atlanta, Georgia, like yes, it I know it today from like basically news reports, like films, TV, that yeah, it is a southern city, like predominantly black, but that's how I know it from then. But the whole thing is Georgia, like, yeah, 50 years ago, Georgia 60 years ago was a very much a different place. And you're talking about, yeah, doing music videos, like films, stuff like this. Yeah, you may have very much struggled because, yeah, authorities would have been on your back and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the whole sort of general vibe, but
For
it's
sure.
changed. And like the whole thing is with regards to the community going forward, like each year, each decade, and everything like this. As I sit as a Brit abroad, looking at America and seeing it get more and more divisive. Like one of the films I'm going to watch most probably over this weekend is The Forever Purge, and it's like feels like it's becoming more and more sort of like, hey, this is where you guys going to end up in the future.
What's the name of the film?
Forever Purge. Like
Okay,
basically,
got you.
yeah, basically part of the Purge series, and like it's like you're going, okay, uh, let's not go down that path, America. Let's step away from like the madness. Do not blink while you stare into the abyss. But like this is the thing when it comes to like having these conversations with people. There's a line from a film called "Thank You for Smoking," starring Aaron Eckhart. Like he's talking to his son, and like he's like, "going, yeah, what?" And his son goes, "What if you can't change the mind of the person you're having, like you're trying to like talk to?" And he goes, and like Aaron Eckhart looks at him, goes, "It's not about that person. It's about the other people around you. And that's who you've got to convince." And like, look, if the person is hard-headed, if the person's not so set in their ways, yeah, you might have this conversation like someone who might be over, like sort of doing a sneak peek listen, might go, you've made some good points there. You came across well. And like that's the person who then goes on from that, because through every action there is cause and effect. And if you are trying to affect a positive, like upbeat attitude, it might not work with that person, but therefore like it will work with other people around you. And yeah, it might like they might go back, you remember what this guy said this and this to me, and like in their household, and like their kids might go, sounds very reasonable to me. That didn't seem out of order or wrong. I just think it's a case of it's going to take a lot of work, and I think that's the whole thing. People I think are forgetting that communities are about building relationships, and when you have a good relationship, look, we've all known what a shitty relationship's been like, but you know what I mean, building a good relationship takes hard work, dedication, and yeah, sometimes not getting everything you want, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I agree with you. I agree with you. No caveats. You gotta be willing to have the conversation. It's just I think where we might diverge in opinion is essentially once you're done with that conversation, you know, I think there's been a lot of dialogue about well, what are we going to do about the gap or the distance between the left and the right? And I hate that it's like called the left and the right, or conservative and the liberals, which I think is a better a word, like conservative and liberals type approach, which is really strange because you can be conservative and still be in agree of some of these other things. So and you can be liberal and still be in agree with some of these other things. But the gap, what are we going to do about the gap? I think once you try to have those conversations and someone says that, for example, from my point of view, someone says that, they want to continue to propagate things that are actually detrimental to my life, the life of my son, and the people like me and him that will come after us. I'll take a line from a different movie, from Amistad, when the attorney said, if there is to be a final battle of the Revolutionary War, let it begin today. Because I want my son to be able to go to school. I want to make movies. I don't want to make war. But if that's what it is, here we are, and it's getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Everyone around the world is trying to find a peaceful resolution. We have a window where we think we can come together. The Olympics always brings everyone together, and we get all patriotic. But here we go. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it pulls us together again.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like I would simply say this with regards to the world. Like, okay, and you must like there'll be many people who disagree with me saying this. Like this is even with a global pandemic going on, like for today's society, everything like this is one of the best times to be around, alive, well, like living in this world. And look, if you live in the UK, United States, Canada, Australia, like any sort of Western world country, Germany, you have got a golden lottery ticket to like go ahead and do a hell of a lot of things. Because look, if we were in other parts of the world which were not as developed or whatnot, filmmaker, podcaster, yeah, this wouldn't be like, this wouldn't be even an option on the menu. It would be like, yeah, down to doing a number of other things to sort of get by in life. Like we wouldn't have this sort of free time to like actually just go out there and do this. But but we live in a world and a society which, has its advantages. Is it totally fair? No. Is there things what need to be worked on? Yes. And it's a case of, yeah, even though we do live in when I say this, privileged like society when it comes to the rest of the world, hey, we've still got to do the work which is required to get it, to make it even better. Like for your son, like, yeah, my future kids, if they ever come along, like basically my friends' kids and their kids going on from there, but work needs to be done.
Yeah, the work has to be done, has to be. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. And it's hard. A lot of time those conversations are difficult. The decisions that have to be made are difficult and uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's why I give so much credit to sort of the summer of 2020, because there were a lot of difficult conversations happening. In the height of the pandemic, like you said, there were a lot of difficult conversations happening. But there was also a lot of action taken. There was a lot of policy change, but there was also a lot of fire and blood too. Again, I truly believe that, like, I do believe that, like, people are ultimately good. Like, that may be my flaw, that I believe that people are ultimately good.
But they are. Like, this is they are, because like you think about it, right? You think about all the horrors of the world, like throughout history. You've like, you know what I mean? When people have been really, really, really horrid, evil to each other, and you kind of look at where we are right now.
Yeah. I believe. And that goes into my thoughts. Like, I believe that people are ultimately good, given giving comfort, giving that they have what they need, they feel they need,
Mm.
and they're okay, and they can find happiness and they can find peace, and they don't feel taken advantage of, people are ultimately good.
Mm.
Um, I think you start taking away those things, and people are gonna do what they got to do, you know. And that's, I think that like there are those of us like me and you know, we have a little bit extra, and there are people who have a lot of it extra. We're not in those positions that those people who are scratching and clawing and wondering how they're going to keep their belly full, you
Mm.
know. But those people are the ones where we have to keep in mind that, like, you know, those the tolerance that we have for certain behaviors are costing them their lives. It's costing them their future, it's costing them their opportunities. And without opportunity, without the comfort that we talked about, when people are ultimately good, they're going to be bad. They're going to be bad. They're going to be like a lion on a prowl. They're looking to lay somebody down, open up their bellies. That's just the way it is. Like, people got to survive. People are going to do whatever they think they can do.
Yeah, no, like this is
Yeah.
as long as there's hope,
Yeah.
we can move forward in a positive way.
Yeah.
Mm. Now,
I took a dark turn. That was Game of Thrones turn.
look. All I've got to say is, I'm not the one who's been on the set. You just say, yeah, I could hear the rhythm, I could hear the drums. You're dum 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 dum.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're there. But yes, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can actually get hold of you? How can they find you on the world wide webs, as they say?
Yeah, what I typically tell people is, if you can like tolerate me on Instagram for a long enough period of time, then you'll know if you can stand me or not, right? Because I'm a little bit much. So
It's like,
right. So get me on Instagram at Sir_Gino, Sir for being a knight of the realm.
my lord.
And yeah. So Sir_Gino, Gino. It's funny thing, that was like my IG name well before I even started working with Game of Thrones. But yeah, it's always felt like I was like a knight, even though, you know, you can't just be like a knight. Weird. Um so yeah, Sir_Gino. If you like what you see there or what you are experiencing there, then it's easy access to the website and everything else from there. Cool.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you, Gino, for coming on today. Yeah, you have been outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. This was fun. It was a good chat.
Hey, oh yes, many more to come, I'm sure. But yeah, I also like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, sticking with us up to the end of this conversation. You have been outstanding. You've been fantastic. So let me just say this to you. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day. Yeah. Peace. And we are